ESPN put out a way too early college basketball top 25 next year. The college basketball transfer portal is going ahead and kind of shaping up and doing its things. Indiana did add Langdon Hatton today, so there are a few more guys. We'll get into that a little bit in the next subject, but it's interesting. No Big Ten teams in the top 10. If you're listening on podcast, here's what the top 10 looks like. Kansas, Houston, Gonzaga, Baylor, Iowa State, Alabama, UConn, Duke, North Carolina, Arizona. Your Big Ten teams are Purdue at 13, Indiana 16, UCLA 17, Ohio State 22. I don't know what this guy was thinking. He's an idiot. Maryland at 24. Ohio State is not the 22nd best team in the nation. Anyway, so those are your Big Ten basketball teams in the top 25. Before we get into the Big Ten stuff, okay, before we get into that, what else does Dan Hurley have to do to be number one team in the nation in the preseason? Are you kidding me? What in the world? What is going on? Why is Bill? He just won back-to-back national championships with completely different rosters. It wasn't like the same roster came back. Completely different rosters. Completely, and now he's bringing in Liam Neeson and all these other guys. Not Neeson, but whatever his name is, the old IU recruit. All these guys. He's bringing in guys from the transfer portal. I mean, he is doing it again right before our very eyes. And this stupid ESPN guy, what's his name? Jeff Borzillo, idiot, has UConn at 7th. You guys can talk about the Big Ten if you want, but that's.
Well, I was just gonna say, probably the only guy more mad about that than you is Dan Hurley. He's probably even more fired up than you are, and you know he's gonna use this as motivation. Right now, he's talking to his guys about this right now.
Point, dude. He will act mad about it. He ain't mad about it.
True.
Opportunity to do this. This is his. This is giving him all the ammo he needs.
I agree. He is going to somehow, like, we were all talking about how, like, the plane or the bus, was it a plane or a bus, didn't work to get him to the Final Four or whatever that game was. And, you know, Dan Hurley's going to use this. You just put him 7th in the way too early top 25. You don't think he's going to use this to go win a 3rd straight national championship? Jeff, come on.
I think he is. I think he is going to use this.
Yeah. I think he will absolutely play it up, but it is.
You're right, Dylan. Right.
It's the preseason rankings. They're just fun. They're just fun. And of course, every coach knows that. You know damn well Dan Hurley knows that. So he will just take it. It will enter the Dan Hurley spin zone and he'll use it to a T just perfectly. That's what he does.
He will. I'm already marking down on my tournament bracket next year. UConn wins it all. So I am not doing anything else. That's literally the first thing I'm writing down. Very middle, UConn. That's all I'm doing. Okay. All right, Kent, let's start with you, man. Purdue, number 13, Indiana 16, UCLA 17, Ohio State 22nd, Maryland 24th. There is a certain orange team that is not on here that I am a little perplexed at where they're at in the rankings here. Are there any teams that you feel like should be in the top 5, or any teams you feel like are in the top 5 that should not be in the top 25?
I'll start with who I think should not be there. I'm actually more surprised with Maryland than I am Ohio State. I'm surprised that they snuck up in there. I don't know what convinced anyone to think that they're going to be a top 25 team next year. I have no idea. I'm super confused about that. What's that?
It's a Derek Queen. That's it. Well, and the guard Gillespie.
I mean, they haven't done
Kevin
anything.
Willard's our head coach.
Are they expecting
that's
Deshaun
the big
Harris
thing
Smith
is, like,
to just
Willard is still there? Yeah.
Are they expecting Deshaun Harris Smith to just take a step we've never seen?
That's the first thing that I pulled up when I was like, wait, did they get somebody that I don't know about? And his name came up, and I'm like, man, is he going to lead them next year to a top 25 ranking? I don't envision it. So I was very surprised to see them, even more so than Ohio State, like I said. So, and then back to who I'm surprised is not in there. Where's Michigan State at? I mean, Michigan State is the offseason, preseason king of the rankings, and I'm just surprised they're not in there just off of de facto. You just throw them in there because it's Michigan State, and they get all the credit in the world during the offseason and during the preseason. So just based off of that, not based on their talent or what I think they're going to do next year, just based off that, I'm surprised not to see them. Obviously, the key one, though, is the one that JR was alluding to is Illinois. I'm very surprised not to see them. They have Boswell coming in, Carey Booth. They have the 15th ranked transfer roster right now. And, obviously with the culture that they've built and the winning that they've done throughout the last couple of years, the year that they're coming off of, just really surprised not to see that team again above Maryland, even just off the bat, and in the top 25. So them, and then I'll throw out two other wild cards. These are teams I'm not surprised. I should say I'm not going to say I'm surprised not to see them, but I'm thinking that maybe at some point next year these two teams could make the top 25. Wild card would be Michigan, and that's if all the transfers that they got pay off. Roddy Gale, Wolf, Donaldson, everybody, they got Walters and Vlad Golden. If they can mesh together, I think that they could make a top 25 push at some point during the season. And then I'm never going to mention a top 25 without mentioning my guy, Chris Collins. He's going to bring them to the top 25 at some point next year. It's just Northwestern. That's just what he does. Even if they're not in the top 25, he's going to win, and you'll hear people complaining about them not being in it at some point, at the very least, I would say. So those are my thoughts on the way too early college basketball top 25 by this guy, whoever it was.
Jeff. Stupid Jeff.
My name Jeff.
All right, Burke, I have an exercise for us, but I'm going to let you give your agree, disagree, who should be in, who should be out, and then I have an exercise for us. Go ahead.
No, interesting on Northwestern. They are a team I'm afraid to count out. Like I'm super quick to just be like, Boo Booey's gone. There was a time before Boo Booey at Northwestern, and there will be a time after, and it's going to be interesting to see what it looks like. Now, with the talent they do have returning, you think that they could crack in there. But yeah, you were right on with Maryland, man. Like, is it Julian down low? Because Julian, I'm sorry, I cannot have faith in a guy who has zero. He had 0 points against Zach Edey, man.
Yes.
Just on your own, like a personal constitution, you have to drop a bucket.
He's a good piece, but he's not a star that's going to lead the team, right? I mean, this is not Jameer Young.
Yeah.
He's not going to lead your team. He's not going to be the tone setter for your team. He's going to be a very good piece, but you have to have somebody to pair him with. Is Jacoby Gillespie that guy? Maybe, but I don't think he's Jameer Young level, and they couldn't even get there with Jameer Young. So Derek Queen and Julian Reese could be a very good front court in the Big Ten, but like we talked about on last week's episode, when I kind of went after Purdue a little bit for all their freshmen, Derek Queen is going to be a freshman. I think Derek Queen's very good, but you're not going to come in as a freshman, especially with the Big Ten the way it is, just how college basketball is right now. You're not going to come in as a freshman and dominate the league unless you're just some superstar freshman like a Cooper Flagg or somebody like that. And even him, he's probably not going to be able to go in the ACC and just dominate right away. It might take some time. He might do it in some games, but it's not going to be consistent.
Yeah.
So, all right, let's go ahead and start this exercise. Okay. Teams that you would put in the top 25 over Maryland. Okay. So you guys tell me yes or no. Okay. Michigan. Would you
Not
put
yet.
Michigan above Maryland?
I think Michigan's ceiling is higher than Maryland's, which is weird, but considering Maryland's preseason ranked, but I mean, just as far as proven roster production goes, like right now, I think Maryland has to have it just slightly.
And Dusty May. I mean, Dusty May is 10 times better coach than Kevin Willard is, right?
Yeah, but to me, it's like I have to see it first because they have way too many like question marks. Nobody that's going to be a big factor for them next year was on the team last year. So there's a lot that has to come together for them to be a team that's going to be in the top 25. I mean, I think it could happen really quickly, but I'm not going to say it right now. I have to see it first from Michigan.
Okay, Northwestern.
Yes.
Again, I think they could. Do I think they'll finish above Maryland? Yes. I don't think you can rank them right away just because it is the Boo Booey question. Like that is a big if.
I agree. I'm not putting them in the top 25. But are you asking if they're better than Maryland, or or we're putting them in the top 25?
Yeah.
Like if you had the option, you either have to put Maryland or Northwestern in the top 25. It's non-negotiable. One of them has to be in the top 25. Who do you put in, Maryland or Northwestern?
Northwestern, 100%.
Okay.
Right now I'm putting in Maryland, but that's just because I trust that Gillespie will be able to make the most of that, the way they set up that point guard position for him. And Derek Queen's going to come in and produce. I'm afraid that it might get clunky for him, but I do think right now, just what is proven on the floor, I would pick Maryland above them.
Okay. Rutgers.
Dude,
That's tough.
Cliff leaving is such a, like, it says something about the program to me. I don't know what it says about it, but it says something about what's going on. Like, he doesn't want to be a part of what is the most hyped season in Rutgers history. That says a lot.
Yeah, that is weird. That's a good point. I never really thought of it like that. I don't know why I didn't think of it like
he
that.
was supposed to be the program guy. He was the one that was supposed to show Dylan Harper the ropes on defense.
I'll go Maryland on this one, I guess. Just for now. Again, I think that it could change really quickly after the season started. I could be really impressed with Rutgers, but between those two, I would go Maryland at this moment.
Yeah, they could also come out like superstars and take it by storm and end up in the top 4, but it's just, you don't know with freshmen contributing in the Big Ten.
Illinois.
100%.
I don't know enough about what's going on there. I just hear rumblings of Coleman stirring up. Coleman just constantly stirring.
Hey, he's in the NBA now, too. He's in the NBA.
Yeah.
he posted his photo of his back walking out the door. He's out. Okay.
Oh.
Signing out. 33.
Ew.
I love Coleman Hawkins on Twitter. It's one of my favorite to follow on Twitter. Nebraska.
Not after Rink Mass, man. Ring Mass is such a big loss. Everything ran through it. Like he was the way he played reminded me a lot of a Trace Jackson light. Like he wasn't doing it to the extent of TJD, but he was catching it up top. It ran through him a lot of the time. Those open shooters found themselves open off of his work, like at the top of the key a lot. So
I'm going Maryland.
How he goes down.
Sorry, Burke. I didn't mean to jump on you there, but I'm going Maryland over Nebraska first. I'm off Nebraska big time.
So you're so down on Nebraska this year.
I'm majorly down on them, and I was down on them before even the injury was announced. And now once they announced that, I was completely off of them. So yeah, I'm going Maryland above Nebraska for sure.
Okay, all right. Last one. Do you agree Ohio State over Maryland?
Yes.
Yeah.
Wow. All right. Let's talk about Purdue. Purdue, number 13. Not top 10. Went to the national championship. Very good season. Did lose Zach Edey, but they have Braden Smith, Fletcher Loyer coming back. Trey Kaufman-Renn looks to be playing the 5 role this season, most likely. Purdue, 13. Too high, too low. What are your thoughts? Or just right?
Please start, Kent, because I'm going to.
Okay.
I'm formulating how I'm going to say this.
I think that of the Big Ten teams, well, first of all, let's start with what Burke said. None of this matters right now, right?
Yeah, of course.
The preseason rankings don't really have an impact on what's going to happen long-term next year, but it's fun to talk about. So let's talk about it. There's only 2 teams, I think, that are in the Big Ten that have an argument to be in the top 10 of this ranking right now, and they're in the same state. It's Purdue and Indiana. If a fan base wants to get behind something and say, hey, we should be ranked top 10 at this very moment, it's one of those 2 teams. Now, do I think that either one of them need to be in the top 10 at this very moment? I don't know enough about all the other teams that are in the top 10 to say that confidently. But I will say that I think that Purdue and Indiana, as their rosters are built at this moment, are top 10 potential teams at some point next year or even by the end of next year. So, yeah, I think that there's an argument for both of them to be in the top 10. I think at this moment, there's an argument to be made for almost anybody to say, hey, we got this, this, and this. We're going to be this next year. But realistically, I think it's just those 2 teams that could come to the table with some real facts and say, these are the players that we have, and this is what we plan to do next year. And I think it's a top 10 team for both of them next year at some point.
Burke?
I got to do it. That's what we're saying right now. I got to do it. All right.
You have to speak on a podcast.
Hey,
Burke. Yeah,
hey, Purdue fans, please, will you guys please respect the 2-time National Player of the Year? I'm begging you to respect him because this guy leaving is a huge deal. This guy changed the way people play basketball. Like, there was no game that you watched as Zach Edey where you were like, oh, they're flying up and down the court. No, he was equivalent of 3 feet of mud on any given court he was playing in for both teams, man. It just slowed it down. Purdue bruised it, and they won that way. And to say that Braden Smith is going to take a step in his assists and he's going to hit that next level, hey, you know what? I didn't think he'd take a step. Hands up. He took a huge step this year. Like, he took it to another level. But he is losing 3 of his like top 4 like assists, like the guys he assisted to. And you can't tell me that whoever they're replacing Zach Edey for production with is going to be able to convert at the rate at which Zach Edey was converting. That number will go down. It just has to. And but as far as top 10 goes, I want Purdue up there. I do. As far as the whole Big Ten goes on this top 25, I love it, man. There's a lot of Big Ten representation. Like, a lot that last year it was Purdue and Michigan State. I love that we have this many in the mix right now. But yeah, I mean, Painter, you got to put him at 13. It's 13 and Indiana at 16 because of the coaches. We got the Mike Woodson, downgrade right now, and they got the Painter bump. If you're looking at rosters, you cannot objectively tell me Purdue's is better right now. Kanon Catchings is a hell of a player. He's going to contribute as a freshman, but I don't think a lot of Purdue fans have seen that caliber of freshman, and they aren't like really accustomed to the growing pains that can still come with even like a top 5 guy. And yeah, it's going to be a fun season where I think Purdue will be able to. I mean, they always compete for it. They could have anyone out there, and it's just going to be fun. Finally having these games. Like, I want Indiana and Purdue to be 1 and 2 every time we face off.
Burke, what happens if Caleb First comes to Assembly Hall next year and drops 25 on Balo's head?
I mean, that's not happening. It's just not happening. Yeah,
I thought we were doing what ifs tonight.
I don't speak French, dude. What are you saying right now?
Don't speak Lafayette. I am so incredibly torn on Purdue because everything that I know about basketball tells me they're not a top 10 team, that they're not even a top 15 team because of how good Zach Edey was. It's nothing against Braden Smith and the other guys. It's just how incredible Zach Edey was, and the fact that they didn't bring in a transfer for the 3 or the 4 spot, which I think could really help them, or the fact that they didn't keep Mason Gillis, who I think could have really helped them this year. But at the same time, and I know people think I'm a Purdue hater, and we had a bunch of Purdue fans unsubscribe because I made a video that included the word struggling in the title. That's fine, whatever. But Matt Painter's still the coach. And I think Matt Painter is a damn good coach. And it's hard for me not to trust Matt Painter, right? Like, do I think Purdue's going to contend for a national championship this year? No. Do I think they're going to contend for the Big Ten and they're going to be my favorite to win it? Most likely, because I need to see, and we'll get into Indiana in a minute, but I need to see Mike Woodson put it all together. He has the talent, he has the roster this year, but I've seen Matt Painter put it all together with a less talented roster and be able to win the Big Ten. I've not seen Mike Woodson be able to do that yet. And so for me, I'm just so incredibly torn with Purdue. You could put Purdue outside the top 20. I'd be like, okay, I see it. I kind of get it. You could put Purdue in the top 5, and I'd say, maybe not, but I also kind of get it because it's Matt Painter.
Counterpoint, the 2 teams that were in the national championship this year, Purdue and UConn, UConn probably lost more production than Purdue did. No? From that national championship game? Why isn't Purdue number 1 in this ranking? I'm sorry. I'm just trying to get ahead of the comments this week.
Yeah, devil's advocate. You need it always.